Hey, all, it's David Ducker coming back at you, and today I'm going to be doing Return of the Runefangs, Episode 6. So as you may recall, we left our heroes on a cliffhanger. I love cliffhangers, where they had stormed the manor house of the Golden Wheel Trading Company because they knew that it was actually the den of the guild mistress of the local thieves guild, Lorenzia Edelstein. They had assassinated Mr. Click, Matt Click's character that he sent me for the game. Brutally assassinated Matt Click's very sad about that. And as they did so, the top floor exploded, crushed the second floor. Then the second floor came down through their ceiling. Two of the players left out the door into the street. Two of the players had leapt down the cellar, down the cellar steps. So they bought themselves some more time before that collapsed. And then we ended that session. That was episode 5. Episode 6, we pick up with the two characters in the street. That's Sauvage and Sir Theodore. Sauvage, as he's laying there kind of dazed, he looks over his shoulder and he sees running through the crowd outside that's gathered as his building's caught on fire and exploding, this bucket brigade that's forming to put it out. He sees a red-robed figure fleeing away. He realizes, oh, a fellow mage of the Bright Order. They must have exploded the building with red magic, fire magic. But that figure actually that's retreating turns and looks over its shoulder, and Sauvage is greeted with his own face looking back at him. So he's thinking, oh, you know, I have a doppelganger now. This is bad. So he and Sir Theodore stand up, and they decide that hopefully their companions have got through to the cellar and found the secret passageway through to the sewers, which they knew from interrogating Mr. Click's butler, that the sewers led down to the guild hall, and Lorenzia had fled to the guild hall while Mr. Click met to parley with House Berengar, with the heroes. Of course, that parley didn't go well, as they assassinated him instead of parleying with him, which is too bad. So Sauvage and Theodore start prying at a sewer grate nearby to try and get into the sewers and assist their companions. We insert a new player in this session, Sir Blaine. So they were approached as they're prying at the sewers, and you know, they're covered in soot and sitting just some distance from this burning building with a bucket brigade. They're approached by a knight. He introduces himself as Sir Blaine. He says he's come to collect a debt from House Berengar, and Sauvage kind of brushes him off. He's like, well, we're kind of busy right now, and he's prying at the sewers. We're kind of busy right now, but if you accompany us, surely our debt to you will double. And Sir Blaine's like, you don't even know what your debt is yet. I haven't even explained it. Sauvage is like, oh, that's okay, that's okay. We have to go, though, so we'll catch up with you later, unless you want to come. And he goes down into the sewers, and Blaine is like, this is not what I was expecting from House Berengar, and he kind of crawls into the sewers after them. So Theodore, Sauvage, and now Sir Blaine are heading through the sewers towards the, hopefully towards the secret passages in the basement under the manor house that that's been set on fire. Along their way, they encountered a ooze, which I love ooze monsters. Sauvage was horribly burned by it. As they saw it, and Sauvage realized what it was. He blasted it with fire, but it caught on fire, and then oozed up onto his feet and started oozing up his legs while it was on fire. So he's getting burned both from its own acid and from the fact that it's on fire. Theodore grabbed Savage's cloak and ripped it off along with the slime and threw it into a pile. And then Savage blasted it again. But Savage's legs are horribly charred and they're cracked and there's oozing plasma. So he had some hurt put onto him. In the sewers where he's bound to get infected, plus he's lost his robe now. So it's very unfortunate. So they continued through sewers. Eventually they came to a secret passageway, which they're able to recognize. Savage, quite strong navigational skills. He was pretty sure they were in the proximate area of the manor house. So they were paying attention, and they did find a secret passageway. It was trapped, so it was a sliding wall that led into a little alcove, but at the floor of it was a pressure plate with spikes that would shoot upwards when pressure went down on it. They found a second secret button or lever to keep that from happening. So one of them had to stay behind, hold down this lever, while the others headed through. And then they found, corresponding door and lever switches. So another one of them had to hold the switch while Savage followed them. So we'll jump back to Camilla and Ulrich. They had dived down these steps. So they found themselves in the basement of this burning manor. They're worried the ceiling is going to collapse onto them. So the basement has lots of wine bottles in racks, lots of kegs of ale in just stacks, as well as various crates. I think there was a pantry there as well. It was basically just being used for storage. So they knew there was a secret passage into the sewers somewhere. So they searched about. It was, the classic ale keg against the wall, and it's hollow, and there's a ladder at the far end. I love that secret passage. I've used it at least twice, and I will use it again. For some reason, it just amuses me. So Camilla decides she's going first. She starts crawling through the cask. She sets off a trap where on the inside of the circular barrel there's a noose of extremely sharp metal. I think it was like a mithril wire, essentially. And as she stepped down, crawling over it, it closed around her midsection and started to pull her up to the ceiling and cut her in half. Fortunately, her armor managed to stop it from injuring her long enough for Ulrich to crawl in underneath her in this barrel. Very awkward, crawling, two people crawling in the barrel, and managed to cut the mithril with his sword as she fell on top of him. This kind of tangle of limbs in this little barrel. But they continued on down the ladder at the far end. So they came to kind of a dungeon area, headed out through a hallway, set up another trap there in the stonework, compressed brick, and steel grates dropped down at either end of the hallway. Camilla actually leapt, and slid underneath the far grate. So she wasn't trapped in the hallway with Sir Ulrich. And in the room she found herself in, it's just a small room with a door. The door swings open. A couple of thieves come in, members of the Thieves Guild of the Bridge Rats, bearing crossbows. They heard the clatter of the grates come down, and they were just going to come in and fire through the grates and kill whoever they trapped, because Lorenzi had told them they might be pursued, so she left them behind to guard the way. Of course, Camilla, had not been trapped, so she butchered them brutally. She had her rapier and her buckler, and she just beat them to death with her buckler, which is her fighting style. And then she found that secret hidden switch to raise the grates up, rescued Sir Ulrich. He had tried to use a strength check to pull the grates up, but it locked in place, unfortunately. So at first he saved her from a trap, then she saved him from a trap. Very nice. So they come through the room where the thieves came from. It's kind of a guard room, waiting room. And they start to hear voices from the other side of the door, which presumably leads out into the sewers. So we had a really fun scene. The whole time, I've been jumping back and forth between the groups, between Sir Blaine, Sauvage, and Theodore, and Camilla and Ulrich. I've been jumping back and forth, six or eight times. And I started to do it again. So they're both on one side of a doorway. They both hear voices from the other side of the doorway. And Sauvage starts casting armor on himself. And then, Camilla and Ulrich hear ominous chanting from the other side of the doorway. And, I can see from a meta gaming perspective, everyone kind of realizes that it's the rest of the party on the other side of the door. But their characters don't realize that. So, of course, eventually it was, I think, Theodore busted the door in. He's got his greatsword, and Camilla just blasts him with a crossbow, which was very entertaining. And I was very, very happy with my players that they didn't metagame, and that they came through, and they still had that really funny scene. So the party was reunited, however. It's always good to get the party back together after splitting up. So they decide that they're now going to follow Lorenzia back through the sewers to the guild house and assault her that way. So they start heading back through the sewers. And eventually they saw some torches up ahead, heard some voices. So they put their own torches out, and they hid on either side of the tunnel and basically ambushed some thieves who had been sent back to essentially locate and kill them, because word had reached Lorenzia that Sauvage and Theodore had gone down into the sewers, because they just did it in public. So word had reached her. She sent forces to go stop them. And the party, fortunately, set an ambush for them. It was very, very entertaining ambush and combat. But the party did manage to deal with all those thieves. They briefly interrogated one of them and learned that Lorenzia was taking Sir Lewin, who was her captive, to the Iron Tower, so that Lewin would withdraw Sixtus from the Iron Tower and rescue him. So the party started booking it towards the Iron Tower. They head back up into the streets, and just as they're crossing the Iron Bridge to head into the tower, they see at the river gate of the private dock of the tower, they see Lorenzia's flagship there. So they're heading into the Iron Tower, but they realize Lorenzia's beat them there. And that's where we ended off the session. Another cliffhanger. I love cliffhangers whenever I can get the opportunity. So, very much dungeon crawl session, but it was dungeon crawl done right. Got some great descriptions of the torchlight and the water and the stonework, the cockroaches. It's a very ominous feeling. That if your torch should go out, you'll be caught here in blackness, surrounded by roaches and enormous rats. And we got some good combat in. So we're still learning the system for combat. So it's getting quicker every time. Megan did some great description with her fighting style. Very happy with. I did learn that there's no real rules for traps in the game. I haven't used traps in the last 50 sessions I've GM'd. I don't use them unless they actually make sense. But here I've learned that there actually are no rules for them in A Song of Ice and Fire. Not too hard to homebrew in, but I did find that a somewhat curious omission. Now this session, I want to give a shout out to all my players that I was exhausted this session. Far from my best, but they all really stepped up the role playing, and still made it a pretty solid session. So that's where I'm going to leave off for episode 6. Tune in for episode 7. Probably won't be for a while because we're having more scheduling conflicts. What with one of our players being engaged to get married. Congratulations, by the way, Mike. But you're messing up our schedule. I'll catch y'all next time in YouTube land.